Ireland, the Emerald Isle, evokes images of rolling green hills and a resilient people known for their warmth and spirit. Yet, beneath this idyllic image lies a history scarred by tragedy. The Great Hunger, known also as the Irish Potato Famine, stands as a stark reminder of a time when hunger and despair gripped the nation. From 1845 to 1852, a blight ravaged the potato crop, Ireland's staple food, leading to unimaginable suffering and forever altering the country's social, political and demographic landscape. Millions perished, their cries for help often going unanswered. Families were torn apart as desperation drove many to seek refuge beyond Ireland's shores. The Great Hunger was not merely a natural disaster, it was a human tragedy, amplified by political negligence and economic exploitation. This period left an indelible mark on the Irish psyche, shaping their identity and fueling a fight for justice and self-determination. The echoes of this tragedy continue to resonate, urging us to remember the victims, understand the complex factors that led to such suffering, and learn from the mistakes of the past. The story of the Great Hunger is not just Ireland's story, it is a stark reminder of the human cost of poverty, inequality, and political indifference. It is a story that demands to be told and remembered, for in understanding the past we can strive to create a future free from such suffering. Before the famine, the potato was more than just food in Ireland, it was the cornerstone of life. This humble tuber, introduced from the Americas centuries earlier, thrived in Ireland's climate and soil. Its high yield and nutritional value made it the ideal crop for a largely impoverished population. Statistics paint a stark picture of Ireland's dependence on the potato. In the 1840s, over 3 million people, nearly half the population, relied almost solely on the potato for sustenance. Their diet consisted of little else, with an average adult consuming 8 to 14 pounds of potatoes daily. This over-reliance on a single crop created a dangerous vulnerability. While the potato sustained life, it also fostered a precarious existence. The lack of dietary diversity left the population susceptible to malnutrition. Furthermore, the reliance on a single crop meant that a failure in the potato harvest could have catastrophic consequences. This dependence on the potato, coupled with widespread poverty and limited land ownership, created a society teetering on the brink of disaster. In the autumn of 1845, a silent invader crept across the Irish countryside, bringing with it not armies or weapons but something far more insidious, the fungus responsible for potato blight. This airborne blight, carried on the wind from mainland Europe, infected potato plants with devastating speed. Healthy fields, once lush and green, transformed into rotting wastelands practically overnight. The blight turned potatoes into a black, inedible mush, unfit for human or animal consumption. The stench of rotting vegetation filled the air, a grim harbinger of the suffering to come. The 1845 harvest was decimated, and with it, the primary food source for millions. Panic gripped the nation as the magnitude of the crisis became apparent. The potato, once a symbol of sustenance and security, had become a source of fear and uncertainty. The blight's arrival marked the beginning of what would become known as the Great Hunger, a period of unimaginable hardship and loss that would forever scar the Irish soul. As blight ravaged the Irish countryside, the response from the British government, under whose rule Ireland then fell, was woefully inadequate. Marred by indifference and a misguided belief in laissez-faire economics, their actions exacerbated the crisis, turning a natural disaster into a man-made catastrophe. The British government, clinging to the principles of free trade, failed to implement effective measures to halt food exports from Ireland. While millions starved, shiploads of grain, livestock and other foodstuffs continued to leave Irish ports, destined for English markets. This callous disregard for the plight of the Irish people fueled resentment and solidified the perception of British indifference to Irish suffering. One particularly egregious example of British policy failure was the establishment of workhouses. These institutions, intended to provide relief for the destitute, became overcrowded and disease-ridden prisons. The work was often backbreaking and pointless, designed more to punish than to assist. The workhouses stood as grim symbols of a system that valued ideology over human life. Section 6. Flight from famine coffin ships and the diaspora. Faced with unimaginable suffering and the indifference of their rulers, millions of Irish citizens made the agonizing decision to flee their homeland. Driven by desperation, they embarked on a perilous journey across the Atlantic, seeking refuge and a new beginning in distant lands. The ships that carried them, overcrowded and unsanitary, became known as coffin ships. Conditions on board were, well, deplorable. Passengers, weakened by hunger and disease, were crammed into cramped quarters, often lacking basic necessities like food, water and sanitation. Outbreaks of typhus and other diseases were rampant, turning the vessels into floating death traps. Many perished during the journey, their bodies buried at sea. Those who survived arrived in their new homes weak and traumatized, forever marked by the horrors they had endured. The Great Hunger led to the Irish diaspora, as millions settled in countries like the United States, Canada, and Australia. They carried with them their traditions, their resilience, and the memory of the famine, which would shape their identity for generations to come. Section 7. A legacy etched in memory. The Great Hunger left an indelible mark on Ireland, shaping its social, political, and cultural landscape for generations to come. The trauma of that period resonated long after the famine itself had subsided, influencing everything from land reform to literature. One of the most immediate impacts was a dramatic decline in population. It is estimated that over 1 million people died from starvation and disease, while millions more emigrated. This demographic catastrophe transformed the Irish countryside, leaving behind abandoned villages and a profound sense of loss. The famine also fueled a growing sense of Irish nationalism. The British government's inept and often callous response to the crisis solidified the perception of English indifference to Irish suffering. This resentment contributed to the rise of nationalist movements and a long struggle for Irish home rule. Section 8. Remembrance and responsibility. The Great Hunger stands as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of poverty, inequality, and political indifference. It is a story that demands to be told and remembered, not only to honor the memory of the victims, but also to learn from the mistakes of the past. Memorials and museums dedicated to the famine can be found throughout Ireland and in countries with large Irish diasporas. These sites serve as spaces for remembrance and reflection, ensuring that the suffering of those who perished is never forgotten. Beyond remembrance, it is crucial to acknowledge the role of historical revisionism in shaping our understanding of the Great Hunger. For too long, the famine was portrayed as an inevitable tragedy, a result of potato dependency and overpopulation. However, historians have increasingly recognized the significant role played by British policies in exacerbating the crisis. Acknowledging this historical truth is essential for promoting justice and accountability. Section 9. Echoes of the Great Hunger. The echoes of the Great Hunger resonate far beyond the shores of Ireland. It serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of food security, social justice, and responsible governance in a globalized world. The famine highlighted the dangers of over-reliance on a single crop, a lesson that remains relevant today. Climate change and globalization have made food systems increasingly vulnerable to shocks and disruptions. The Great Hunger compels us to confront the legacy of colonialism and its impact on global inequalities. It reminds us that the decisions made by those in power have real and lasting consequences for the most vulnerable members of society. The story of the Great Hunger is a story of resilience, of a people who endured unimaginable hardship and emerged stronger, carrying with them the memory of their ancestors and a determination to create a more just and equitable world. It is a story that continues to inspire hope and action, reminding us that even in the face of adversity, the human spirit can triumph.